Challenge it. Challenge it. What's the worst thing that can happen if you challenge yourself? What's the worst thing that can happen if you go ahead and do it? And I'm saying this, as I'm telling you guys this, I'm telling this to myself to continue to put myself out there for the other things that I want. What's the worst thing that can happen? Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So as you can tell by the title, I wanted to come to you guys today. I wanted to talk to you guys about this 20-year belief that I had that was keeping me stuck in a way that I had to confront head on this year. So just to get right to it, so this year really God's been working on me. It's been such a challenging year. You know, self-improvement is so hard. It's so challenging. Like when you're working on yourself, when you're working on improving certain areas of your life, so many things are gonna come up, and certain beliefs, habits, certain patterns. And so I was dealing with all of that in the beginning of the year. I can have another video aspect of that as far as the spiritual side of it, but really this year has been my really anchoring in God year. It's been so much challenges in itself. But all that to say, so earlier this year I realized, as I'm working on myself, listening to videos here on YouTube and reading self-development books, I realized that I had one belief, and in the midst of thinking about it, I had that belief for 20 years. Like this year will make 20 years since I came to the US. So I came to the US 20 years ago. I was 11 years old when I came here from Haiti. So long story short, I always had this belief that I couldn't speak well, people can't understand me, and it's all from the trauma of being here and being in ESL and being looked down upon from being in ESL, and how it affected me in a sense, right? And I was always self-conscious about that. I was always afraid to speak to people, express myself in a way, and I always had that belief that people are not going to understand me. There's certain areas where I don't belong and I shouldn't try, so why bother? So once I realized that I had this belief, I'm like, oh my gosh. And also in the aspect of that, I used to be made fun of because I didn't speak English. You know, that was actually a thing back then, which actually blows my mind to think. But I was very self-conscious when it came to me talking, interacting with people, and having to speak English. So earlier this year, I was in a process of applying for jobs, looking for jobs, and in the midst of that, I applied to different jobs that required me to get out of my comfort zone. One particular job that I applied to, although I had a lot of the skills that it required for the job, it was outside of the field. It was in a different field. I've been working in the healthcare field for as long as I've been working, and this particular job was an engineering job. So I went ahead and applied there, and well, prior to that, I told myself that, you know what, I'm gonna challenge this belief, even if it's to put myself out there, just to challenge the belief and the negative self-thought, you know, that I had about, you know, I'm not good enough, I can still well enough, I don't belong in those spaces. And I told myself, you know what, I want to go ahead and challenge. I want to challenge it with God's strength. I want to challenge this belief. So I went ahead and applied to this job. I was applying for jobs anyways, but I applied for it, you know, just to put things out there. Lo and behold, the hiring manager for that job did reach out to me, and I was happy about it. I was shocked, but I was happy about it. So the initial interview with her went well, and she was really impressed with that interview, and she invited me to a second one, which I was really surprised about, because not having the experience in the engineering field, I thought that would be something that it would disqualify me from continuing in the hiring process, but it did not. And I thank God. You know, I was asking God, like, I don't know what's going on, but you know what, I'm gonna push forward. I know because I told myself I want to challenge that belief that I had, and I don't know if it was a test from you, God, but you know, I'm gonna keep pushing. and just get myself out there, you know. Even if it doesn't work out, it's still an experience. So the second interview was with the two managers that I would be working with, and that in itself, although I was nervous about it because it was two extra person, and it went well. I paced myself through the hiring process, I paced myself through the questions, and answered everything with confidence. Although I was stuttering a little bit, but everything went well. And after that interview, I was so like I was shaking a bit after that. It was a virtual interview, but after that I was thinking, I'm like, you know what, thank you God for this opportunity, because here I am expressing, talking, getting out of my comfort zone and challenging myself, challenging those negative beliefs that I put myself out there. And I'm like, you know what, thank you God for the experience. And I thought that was it. Just like the first initial interview, I thought that was it. I'm like, okay, I did it. I challenged the belief, and I thought that was it. And the very next day, the hiring manager called me, telling me that they were very impressed with my interview, and they invited me for a third interview. And this time around, it was going to be with the CEO, the like 4 other people, and I was really nervous. And that's me like thinking that, man, I'm really putting myself out there. And but I was excited. I'm like, you know what, God, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm excited. I'm nervous, and I went in ahead with a positive outlook, because at the end of the day, it's still an opportunity in a field that I have no experience in. And with the goal of just challenging myself and getting out of my comfort zone. So when it came time for the third interview, I dressed really nice, because the building to that particular interview was going to be on site. So I dressed the part and arrived on time, and I was a little nervous because it was a nice building, and but you know, I was listening to gospel on my way to that, and just like lifting up my spirit and encouraging myself with scriptures that I written down, just encouraging myself through the process. And so when it came time, when everyone arrived, so when I got there, I was greeted by the HR manager. So when I got there, I was greeted by the HR manager, and I was sat in a room while waiting for everyone to make it there. And I was really nervous, because I don't know, like, I'd never been in an interview where the CEO of the company was going to be there, which I was a little worried about that. But you know, just encouraging myself with verses. And I had, like, while I was waiting, I had gospel music playing in my ears, and to my surprise, everything went well. The interview went very well. It was just very positive vibe. Everyone just was exuding just positivity, and just the building in itself, the environment of it all, it was just so positive. And at the end of the interview, everything went well. And at the end of the interview, as I was walking out, I was playing gospel too, and I was telling God, thank you for the experience. Thank you so much. You know, whatever comes of it, whatever outcome from this experience, whatever comes, I'm still grateful for the opportunity, for the experience of challenging myself, of putting myself out there and challenging those negative self-belief that I had of myself, that I can't speak very well, you know, although I have an accent or everything, or I don't belong in these spaces. Just this negative self-belief that I wanted to challenge, you know. And lo and behold, so the following week, I got the call that I didn't get the job. But the whole point of it all was not for me to get this job. It was for me to put myself out there. I know for you guys, like, oh, you didn't get the job, so it's not a good ending to the story. No, sometimes the challenge, the negative self-belief, the negative self-thought we have of ourselves, sometimes those beliefs will keep us stuck. I'm encouraging you guys to challenge those beliefs. Put yourself out there. Yes, it will be uncomfortable, but put yourself out there, because you know what happened, what I gained from that experience of challenging myself, of going outside of my comfort zone, and like applying for jobs that I know in the healthcare field. For me, my experience haven't been as much challenging, because I have so many years experience in the healthcare field, so interviewing that much as I've never had a very difficult interview process, but that in itself was outside of my comfort zone, and I wanted to challenge that. And earlier this year, I don't want to butcher it, but I read a quote that's saying that once the brain once the mind has expanded, it can never go back to its original form. I'll put the actual quote, but that blew my mind because that experience in itself, the way that I was thinking before that experience, I can never go back to that. Now, every challenges that I go through now moving forward, I always go back to that experience. Sometimes those experiences where you actually went through a challenging moment, just look back to those experiences to see, you know what, I went through that. I know I'm going through this right now, but if I went through this experience, the one that I went previously, I can definitely go through the one that I'm going through right now with God's strength. And another note, like, I give it all to God for that experience. If it wasn't for God, I don't know. Like, I really rely on God. I really trust in God. I really put all my trust in God and rely on Him to give me strength, because let me tell you, I feel like right now in this day and age, our mental health is really at war, because if the enemy has our minds, listen, that's where he's trying to be at, gain territory over our minds, and then we're going crazy, depression, anxiety, all these other things. So even that aspect of ourselves, we should leave it at the hands of God. But really, all to say, I want to encourage you guys to challenge this belief. Has it been like easy since that experience? No, but having gone through that, I have something to look back on. Like, you know what, Elia, remember when you went through that? Remember when you went through that? And also ask yourself, what are the negative self-belief that I have of myself? Who told me that? Who told me? Where did that stem from? What's the root of it? Address it. Look how far back that went, those beliefs that you have of yourself. Address it and challenge those beliefs. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be comfortable. I'm not going to tell you guys that it's easy. But with myself, that experience in itself, it was a challenge that at every step, you know, I was thanking God. I was grateful for the experience. I don't know, I was so grateful. You guys, really, I was so grateful, still so grateful for that experience. Not getting the job, the exposure that I got, just seeing how other people live their lives. Like, just, it was such a great exposure that changed me. I don't know, if I got that job, I don't know what kind of other person I would have been, but that exposure just stretched my mind and made it open to, you know what, just put yourself out there. What's the worst thing that can happen? And that in itself, it's not easy. I know it's not. I still deal with these things myself, but I want, for the final time now, I've been saying that all throughout the video, but challenge yourself. Challenge those negative self-belief. What's the worst thing that can happen? If it doesn't work out, it's a lesson at the end of the day. What's the worst thing that can happen? What's the worst thing? Like, for me, the experience that I shared with you guys, I didn't get the job, but guess what? The knowledge, the expansion that I got, the mindset that I got, you know, now just having that experience. Like, I didn't have that before. Now I know it's not going to be comfortable. You're going to be nervous. Do it scared. Then it goes on. Life goes on. If it doesn't work out, you gain knowledge. You get an understanding. So for the rest of these months, for the rest of the month that we have for the year, what's one thing? I want to ask you again. You guys can answer it down in the comments below. What's one thing one belief that you have that you probably think that you're not good enough, that you don't fit in there? What is it? And I encourage you guys, the rest of the year, those months that we have left for the year, challenge it. Challenge it. What's the worst thing that can happen if you challenge yourself? What's the worst thing that can happen if you go ahead and do it? And I'm saying this, as I'm telling you guys this, I'm telling this to myself to continue to put myself out there for the other things that I want. What's the worst thing that can happen? You know what I'm trying to say? Okay, so that's all that I had for you guys today. It's just a quick encouragement, because I know, like, you know, I hope this video helps at least one person. Those self-help people, those self-help books, those self-development videos have hundreds and thousands and millions of views. Not because people are doing well mentally, but because a lot of us are going through it. A lot of us have those negative self-thought, negative self-belief that we're struggling with, you know. I as a Christian, leave those things that you're struggling with, leave it at the hands of God. Also do the necessary work to improve this area of your life that you might be struggling with. As far as that, there's no loss. Honestly, guys, there's no loss but gains. So as you're gonna be challenging yourself, I'm gonna continue to challenge myself, because there's other areas. Listen, this self-development, self-work, it's ongoing. It's really ongoing. And listen, if I went through this, I can go through the other things with God's strength. So anyway, so that's all I had for you guys for today. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.